Hey guys, this is Lucid. Welcome back. We are going to be doing the Pretender design for Hinnom now, and I'm pretty excited about this. I've got a really cool build that I'm pretty stoked about. Now that said, let's do a quick overview of the nation again. It's a nation with a lot of versatility. You have really hard-hitting dudes that have no armor. You have good dudes who are very kind of solid, hold-the-line troops that do good damage and have good armor and take buffs in a great way. You have tramplers who can crush heavy infantry very well. You have magic weapon recruit everywhere dudes. You have slaves which make great siege chaff if you can handle their morale issues. You have giant Raphite sacred units which can be just absolutely terrifying with a good bless. And, of course, we have a nice assortment of mages. You can site search almost every path, so you don't have to worry about magic diversity, though you would certainly like to have a nice cross path or two that the nation doesn't come with. You have built-in healers, so recuperation is less important. You have Kohen to do blood hunting. You have, I don't think any of your mages are old age either, which is really nice. And then you have super combatant quality capital-only mages in the form of the Baal, who's really like a super combatant caster, and the true super combatant, the Melkort. And so you can certainly have a blessed designed around these guys. So you have a ton of flexibility. And the nation has so much that already is done for it. You have, you can site search every single magic path except water. You have some of the best heroes in the game. You have all these heroes which come in, and they're usually a very high magic path level combined with blood. Like, there's a very high nature blood, there's a very high earth blood, and they're all giant tier quality troops. There's a very high astral blood. So they're phenomenal, the heroes you get. So there's a strong incentive to take luck for that. But Hinnom's a nation that's in some ways so good that you can kind of get torn to different directions. Like, on one hand, you could go complete scales, but then you're missing out maybe on some of the cool stuff that you can do with your sacreds, like your sacred mages or your sacred troops. Or you could go full bless and completely trash your scales, but just have terrifying Raphites. But if you do that, then you're missing out on a lot of the versatility you have in your troops, because every point you go into a heavy bless is going to make all your other troops effectively more expensive. And all of your your research mages, they're not sacred, so there's a bit of a trade-off. But this nation is really, really cool. They struggled in Dominions 4 a little bit with these guys being kind of too expensive to really warrant recruitment, and so people tended to kind of go for a sacred bless, and then that typically fell off because it was cap limited. But with the reduction in the cost of all the Avite units, basically the nation got a bit more competitive for running scales in Dominions 5. So that's kind of the overview. Now we're going to go through a few different builds. The first build we're going to go through is if you want to do some kind of crazy Raphite warrior build. And we'll use the bronze calf because, we can. And we're going to do the typical Cancer Bless for Giants, which is going to be Fortitude, Regeneration, Blood Bond. And if you do this and you put a bunch of Raphites together, they are going to be very, very hard to kill. Now, they have pretty good MR, but you also may want to buff their MR up some. They have magic weapons, so you don't need magic weapons, so you could potentially go in for a little bit of Astral and just go MR3. And this would not be bad at all. And it will prevent some of the early counters to your giants like Soul Slay. So this is probably like a bless build you would want to consider. Now, notably, you're missing shock resistance. So shock resistance ends up being pretty important depending who you're fighting. If there's no air nations, you can probably roll this, but if there are air nations, you may also want to throw in shock resistance. Now, at this point, the bless is becoming very expensive, so we'll look at how we can kind of take it and what it's going to cost us. So we're not going to need terribly high Dominion. We can trash Turmoil. We're going to need some productivity. We can trash Heat to 3. Growth we're going to want, so we'll trash this one last. We can trash Drain, Trash and Drain is going to kind of hurt. If you want to go with this kind of Cancer Bliss, one of the things you're probably going to have to say goodbye to is a lot of your heroes. If you keep it at 2 instead of 3, you're still going to have a chance of getting some of your heroes, and if the game goes long, you'll get some of them. If you go all the way to 3, you're basically not going to get any of your national heroes, so that's a decision you have to make. Now, you really want to go for growth, but if you go this full Cancer where you have shock resistance, you're probably not going to be able to afford it, and you're probably going to have to go Turmoil all the way down and take... Oh, we're not even quite there yet. You'll probably have to go Misfortune 3, and we can kick up here. Yeah. So this is something, and we could actually might probably be able to get away with. You have to go all the way down to 4. Probably worth it to keep away from Misfortune 3. We could actually probably do this. This would probably let us max out our Raphaite Warrior production. You'd have to balance it out exactly. But you could do something like this for just a Turbo Cancer, Melkort's in your face, run down anybody like Ashdod. Unlike Ashdod, where your giants can sit around and kind of be peaceful for a time if they want to, if you go this, you're going to be needing to make your giants every turn, and those giants are going to be eating your population, so you basically want them eating other people's population while they're attacking them. So you're basically hard committing to a very aggressive rush build. And if you see somebody with this Bless and you're their neighbor, you know that they're going to be coming after some of their neighbors. They literally cannot afford to sit in their own territory for any length of time, really. You can also potentially run this Dormant and take a little better scales. The problem if you run it Dormant is it's going to be a little harder to expand. Though certainly the Raphites can expand, you're going to have to dodge some of the harder provinces until year 1 maybe, or until you have enough of the Raphites to go in there. But anyway, this is certainly a build you can do. If you want to kick off the shock resistance, like if there's not a lot of big air powers, it becomes significantly cheaper. So we can now do some things like we want to, like at least go neutral on luck, and then have a bit higher Dominion. This is something that appalls me much less than the other build. And then if you want to be really safe and go Dormant, you can start being, like, we're now in the territory where your scales aren't that bad. Like, you can take luck, you can go to Turmoil 1, or you can go to Drain 2. And this Drain 2 actually, going from 2 to 3 is kind of a big deal, because like each point becomes a progressively more, like a larger percent of the remaining amount of RP that mages have. So this, like, let's call this another build. Yeah, let's call this another build. And then if you want to be super budget, but you'll fall off a little harder in the mid game, you can come out here and say, okay, we'll be doing anti-magic instead of relying on MR. And we'll have these guys in big armies, and we're not really as worried about Soul Slay. Maybe due to the nations you're fighting. Now you've all of a sudden got a fair amount more design points, you're Dormant. You know, you could choose to go Awake and then sack one of your scales, and you're going to have much better expansion. Like this, or you could sack something different. But let's call this a different build. So these are all different ways to build kind of Cancer Melkorts. As you transition away from just, not Melkorts, your Raphaite Warriors. As you transition away from Raphaite Warriors into maybe more of super combatants with your Melkorts, a lot of these things are going to be good. Like Fortitude's going to be good, Regeneration's going to be good on all your guys. But you have Nature Mages. You can make these items, you can site search this. You don't necessarily need these this Bless on your mages. I mean, on your Melkorts. They can do a lot of this stuff themselves. Like they can do Temper Flesh themselves. They can have other people cast Regeneration on them. Or they can just wear a Ring of Regeneration. So a lot of this they can do. The Blood Bond isn't really going to pay off for the Melkorts. So this is a Bless that you're really planning on using the Raphaite Warriors. And then transitioning into kind of special use for your Melkorts. So I think that is it for the Melkort builds. Certainly you could come up with other ones, but this is probably the strongest one if you're going to just be rampaging Melkorts through enemy territory. Probably the best way to do that build is to have squads of 5 attached to a Melkort, and they're going to all get blessed up at the beginning, and then they run into combat. Potentially you can have them being followed around by a priest. If the Melkort knows spells, because it's maybe later in the game, they can go get blessed by the priest while the Melkort does his buff up script, and then they follow him on guard commander as he runs into combat. And then you can also buff them up with other fluffer mages that are going to hit the Melkort and some of his other guys. So definitely something, especially if you use the fluffers, that will fall off a lot slower. So that is the Raphite Warrior build. It is very strong early and very cool. So people will curse you if you pick this. We're now going to go on to a different build, but the problem is you don't have great scales. And if you do that, you're basically saying I'm going to make Raphites, and then sometimes I'll make these other guys. Thing is, these other guys can be really useful, and it gives you a lot more different play styles, and potentially you'll scale better into the late game, because the more money you have, the more mages you make, the more you can blood hunt, and all that's going to open up a bunch of other stuff that potentially faster in the late game. The other nice thing about going this way is this guy's going to have a tremendous amount of research points, especially the more cancerous your bless is, actually, the better your very early research is going to be. But these guys can be sitting around researching some critical stuff to get your research economy off the ground, so you can forge magic boosters, or like research boosters, and then also you can get some of your early game alteration research and stuff for your Melkorts. So, there's a strong case to be made for an Awake immobile that is going to make your Melkorts just terrifying. Okay, so that is kind of the Melkort builds, or the Raphite Warrior builds. You can also go full scales. Now, if you go scales, you're probably going to want to pick something that is going to make your Melkorts or your mages a little bit better, because you're not going to be relying on the Raphite Warriors. But you still want something that's going to make your guys better. Often you're going to want shock resistance. So this guy actually is not a bad candidate if you're going to go full scales. Like if we're going to go Imprisoned, we can now go like this. We're going to go Growth now. We're going to go Luck. You can even go Magic if you want to. Magic can be good with these guys because you do have Mind Hunt. This will certainly increase your research speed by a lot. But yeah, you can get, what are some good things we can get? Fire and shock resistance is nice. You really only need the shock part. You could go Unbreakable. That's going to make your guys get afflictions less, but they don't really care because they can do Blood Feast, so, probably wouldn't recommend it. I don't think Hard Skin stacks with the other, like Iron Skin and stuff like that, so probably don't need to do that. You can go Reinvigoration, because Reinvigoration is probably going to be a little bit of an issue for all of your super combatants. So you could do something like that. In this case, we did the Fire Shock Resistance, and then you can come down here and get Blood Surge, which is just going to be nice on Giants. It's going to grant them a little bit of defense and attack and Reinvigoration. Or you can say, look, we're just going to go... let's see if we get... I don't think we have any nature chassis up here. You could just go High Astral, because having High Astral is something that's going to be really good in the late game. So you can do something like this, and then you also don't have great water access. So you could do something like this. You also don't have cold resistance easily, so you could do like minor cold resistance, defense, which is going to be okay to have on your super combatants if you're worried about thugs. And then you can do some magic resistance. Farcaster's probably not worth it. Fate Weaving would be kind of hilarious, especially if you're doing things like Fire Shield. Yeah, you could do something like this. This would be kind of a hilarious Melkort build. You could put charcoal shields potentially. You don't really have great access to forging charcoal shields. You'd have to get a lucky bale. But like this guy could make the Rime Hauberk, which gives you Cold Aura, which would be good with Fate Weaving. Anyway, Fate Weaving's kind of just good. And it would open you up to a bunch of different strategies which rely on Fate Weaving, but you don't have to pick ahead of time, and it's cheap, and you get Astral 7. Or you could just go... Magic Weapons is kind of not that great, because you already have Magic Weapons, but you could just go MR. But you can see we have basically perfect scales. You might want a little bit higher Dominion. just to spread your Dominion, but you don't really need it because you can blood sacrifice. But if you want to go for some Dom kill-esque type strategies later, you probably want to start with a little higher Dominion. So, anyway, you could pick, but like if you wanted to do that, you could drop this down and just get the magic resistance stuff like this, and then jack your Dominion very high, and then your Dominion's going to be pushing like crazy, especially if you ever decide to blood sacrifice. So depending on what you have planned, you can do all sorts of stuff. But you can definitely go full scales, because this nation can expand just fine with scales. You don't need your sacreds. You will potentially have better research. But you're not going to be doing scary meme things with your giants. So that's kind of a trade-off. So that is that. You could also do like an Awake Rainbow, and they will go out and site search everything for you, or they can research early. So you could do just an Awake Rainbow, or you could do an Imprisoned Rainbow with stats that are going to be good for Melkorts. Those are all options. And as it turns out, the build we are going to use is an Imprisoned Rainbow. So an Awake Rainbow is nice because you can get your research economy off the ground early, and that is going to make your Melkorts much more threatening much sooner. But yeah, and there's not a huge number of downsides. If we just look at all the blesses you could get for an Awake Rainbow, like all the attack and defense stuff is nice. The resistances are really nice on Melkorts. Reinvigoration is nice. Potentially the chill auras are potentially good. Windwalker is potentially really good because they can kind of run around much farther. Magic resistances are obviously nice, and these are all things that can go on either an Imprisoned or on an Awake chassis. The death stuff probably not as useful for Melkorts. And then the nature stuff, recuperation would be cool, but we do have access to blood, so we can do Blood Feast and get rid of afflictions that way. And then Blood Surge is always good on super combatants. And I think that's about it. Blood Vengeance would be pretty funny too. That's definitely something you could consider for a Melkort or for a little surprise build. What we're going to do though is something different. If you have been watching my Yomi Let's Play, you will know that we have discovered Repel super combatants. Not super combatants which use Repel as a component in their defense, but which use Repel as the main component of their defense. And what Melkorts are able to do is if you give them a Bloodthorn, they get up to Blood 4, and there are not many mages in the game which can get up to Blood 4 with one item. Like, this is very rare to have a Blood 3 mage that gets up to Blood 4 that is also a super combatant chassis. Now, you may be able to think of another one, and like Lanka may have some, but like the other ones, like Zabalbas, aren't really like super combatant worthy. Trying to think, yeah. I don't really think there are any other good blood super combatant chassis, but I could be wrong. That are recruit in your capital. So anyway, we stick a Bloodthorn on him. He gets up to Blood 4. Now, what do we do when we're Blood 4? We can cast Hell Power. Now, Hell Power is where's Hell Power? I think it's Blood 4. Is it Blood 5? Did I miss it? Is it up here? Oh, here it is. Yeah, okay, so it's Blood 3 to cast, and I think you get it at Blood 4. I have Debug Mod on, so it messes all that up. But you get 300 Fatigue, which is a lot. And it uses 3 Blood Slaves. Now, the special thing is if we get up to Blood... So if we're Blood 3 and we cast it, we're going to be knocked out, and we're going to take a little damage. If you cast it when you're Blood 4 and you have 4 Blood Slaves, Blood 4 is going to drop the Fatigue cost by half, which will make it cost 150 Fatigue. But then if you use an extra Slave, it'll drop it from 300, it'll divide it not by 2, but by 3, which makes it only cost 100 Fatigue instead of 150. And that means it will only knock us out for a very short amount of time, and because it gives us a huge amount of reinvigoration, we will very quickly wake back up. So Blood 4 is really the minimum, unless you're in a communion, to cast Hell Power. And Hell Power is going to give us a huge amount of reinvigoration. It's going to give us 5 attack and 5 defense. And that 5 attack and 5 defense, you may not normally care about, but we are going to be using it on our Milkworts. And our Milkworts already have really good stats. They already have, the Dawnblade gives 2/2, we can give them a better weapon, which is potentially going to give them more. But they already have 5 attack, 5 defense. They're going to have experience stars on them, so that will go up more as they run around and kill stuff. But, you know, with health power, they're going to go up to 20 and then 23. With some of the other stuff we potentially are going to put on them, like Boots of Quickness, it's going to jump up even higher. This may go down, actually, with the Bloodthorn. I can't remember. We're going to be putting other things on them, which are going to give them more repel checks, like either a Stone Bird or a Dancing... what do you call it? The Dancing Trident or Dancing Spear, which is going to give them, I think, another 2 defense. We're going to be putting an item on them which is going to give them more attack, probably, like Ring of the Warrior or Flaming Pearl, depending on which type of resource we want to spend. And that will give us even more attack, like potentially 5 more attacks, so we're going to be up at like 25 attack now, which is getting into the ludicrously high attack realm. And we're also size 5, so on our head we can potentially put Crown of Titans, which will kick us up to size 6. Which is going to give us, I think, a better repel chance. I don't fully know how that math works. I'll probably figure that out. But and more HP. We'll be throwing a Vine Shield on here probably also. Anyway, we are going to turn these guys into just ridiculous beasts because the problem. Okay, you can still kill them with all the things you can normally kill super combatants with, like you know, you can kill them with Soul Slay. You can kill them with Mind Hunt. The thing is, you won't be able to kill the Astral ones with Mind Hunt. And we have the Earth Death Crosspath to forward Shademail Halbergs if we have the gems for them, which means we can have stealthy Astral Mages, so screw your Mind Hunts. Anyway, we can go kind of full gangster with these guys. And the thing... Okay, so you can use the Astral stuff to kill Milkworts, like Mind Hunt and stuff like that. And we're still going to be vulnerable to that, but we have the tools to deal with it. The thing you are really not going to be able to use is anti-super combatant thugs. And this is what I figured out when I was trying to destroy these guys as Yomi when I was fighting for Moria, is troops are not going to kill them, because with 30 attack and 20-something defense and a Vine Shield, they will kill an unlimited number of troops unless they go Berserk. If they go Berserk... it's a little bit harder, but with Vine Shield, they have to have pretty high MR as well. But anyway, we'll probably still murder them because we're going to have good protection and potentially other buffs on them too, so we can still murder them. But troops that don't Berserk, I mean, forget about it. And then thugs that come in, they have armor-negating weapons that would normally kill these guys or Acts of Hate. They're not going to hit anything, they're going to get repelled. So it's going to make these guys extremely hard to kill. And we're going to be fielding them in large numbers. So, if you thought the Yomi super game had some super combatants in it, get ready to see real super combatants. And these guys are going to be just phenomenal. So, that is that. Now, how do we do this? How do we maximize this kind of bless? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to actually go and load up the Pretender that we're going to use. And the Pretender here is going to be Baal Hinnom. And it is a Rainbow Mage, so I've got 1 in a lot of things, which is just going to open up cross paths. I've already got the depth in a lot of paths that I don't need to worry about any of the other stuff. But what have I done here? We've got water, which is the major path we don't have as Hinnom, so it opens up water to us. The cold resistance is kind of nice, and then defense is also kind of nice. Because our defense is not going to get harassed down in a repel build, so adding this defense is going to really affect the super combatant. Because it's not getting reduced as much since we have repel, the defense is basically going to stick around. We have 6 fire. This is our highest fire, and the reason we picked this chassis is because we have a lot of fire. It's going to be our highest path, and therefore it's best to pick a chassis that starts off with a fire. Anyway, so we're 6 fire. That gives us plus 2 attack times 2. So this gives us plus 4 attack when we get blessed, and plus 2 defense. So if we go back to the... Oh, I guess I can't do it from here. We'll go back and look at it. We already remember. The Melkort had what? 15 attack? Okay, let's go check. Hinnom, where are you? Okay, here's our Melkort. 15 attack, 18 defense. Okay, so... Bail Hinnom. Okay. So anyway, just when they cast the Bless on them, they're going to go up to 19 attack and 20 defense. So we're now very close to the 20-20. They're going to have major minor shock resistance because our Earth ones are going to want to be having Iron Warriors on them, and then we're going to be trying to buff our dudes with that anyway, with Fluffers, even if they're not the Earth variety. So this is really nice, and then shock resistance, because it's armor negating, if you get hit by it, is really punishing to super combatants. So eliminating this as a threat is going to save us a lot of money on items, and it's going to just basically make us more versatile. The cold resistance is nice. You usually don't need much of it, but this allows us to fight in cold climates better. And it eliminates some very kind of... I don't know if we'll end up fighting it, but if there's people with chill auras or anything like that, it just eliminates that as a threat vector. And basically it just comes with taking water. Now, you could potentially drop these, like, Air 4 and Water 1, and then pick up some additional Earth, and then you could take, like, 1 Reinvigoration and Mountain Survival or something, and that may be a good trade you want to do. I decided against it because what I want here is I want reliable access to that air booster, and that air booster is going to allow me to do things like Storm much more easily or forge a Staff of Storms. So I want this air. The other reason I want water is fire is going to give me the elemental staff, which is going to help me get really high into elemental paths if I need it. You don't necessarily need to do this as Hinnom because you already have really good high access to all of the elemental paths except water, but it's nice to have it as an option. And it does synergize with our build. And then Blood Surge is the final kind of flourish on top of our build, where once we kill somebody, which we will kill them very quickly with 2 high damage attacks at 20 attack, or 19 attack. Once we kill somebody, which is going to be always, we're going to get +3 attack, +3 strength, and +1 defense, and +1 reinvigoration. And this is super value on a super combatant, especially on a repel super combatant. So this is going to, once we kill somebody without any additional gear, we are going to be up at 20... we started with 15 attack, and this is going to get us up to 19. This is going to get us up to 22 attack. And then we're getting 1 extra defense on top of 2, so this is going to get us to 21 defense. And then 1 additional reinvigoration. Reinvigoration is always nice. The strength, less important, but still nice. So, this is all going to be stuff that is going to make our Melkorts super duper good. Less the Raphite Warriors. The Raphite Warriors will kind of enjoy this, but it's not going to be crazy. They're going to get a fair amount of repels, because the Raphite Warriors have pretty good stats, but it's not going to be crazy. You really need items to make it start getting crazy. So this is really not designed for Raphite Warriors, and I don't really want to make Raphite Warriors. You can do really crazy things with the Raphite Warrior Bless, but you end up getting pigeonholed into just doing that. And we have such good non-sacred units that I really want to have good scales. And the thing is about this Bless is it still affords you to have really good scales. We're going to be taking Turmoil 1. If you go too high in Turmoil, you'll end up limiting a lot of your troops. But with Turmoil 1, you can still make a ton of almost all your troops. Productivity 3 allows us to crank out our really good Abites. Heat 3 is a no-brainer, because we started off at Heat 2. Growth 3, of course. We're a Blood Nation, we love good growth. Luck 3 is going to give us, hopefully, our heroes in a reasonably short order, which are going to be awesome, so we're super stoked about that. And then Drain 2. Drain, and maybe you would go Turmoil 2 and only Drain 1. Drain 2, it's going to give us +1 MR, so guys in our own Dominion, we don't have to worry about them getting mind hunted as much. we are going to have access to a fair amount of the boosters. Once we hit Construction 6, we're going to have Lightless Lanterns coming out all over the place. At Construction 2, we can do Alquills. We are not going to have great Skull Mentor access. So, in fact, getting this build is one weakness of this is we don't really have an easy way to climb death. We have the Air Blood Cross path, so we can do Robe of the Magi and stuff like that, which will help us climb death, because then that's going to give us Death 2 once we put it on. And then with Death 2, we can get a staff. And with the staff in this will be Death 3. And I can't remember if there's a Death 3 guy we can summon that'll get us up. Let's check real quick. I don't think there is. I think we're a little bit stuck at Death 3. So we then have to probably make a Ring of Sorcery or something. So we don't have it. Basically, we don't have an easy way to climb death. So that's a weakness of this. And death is always fun to climb. But it's really strong, I think. I haven't tested this a ton. I tested it some. And it works pretty well. You don't have to Hell Power with this. You're pretty good if you don't want to Hell Power. But if you've got a really hard army, and you want to make sure the job gets done, and you've got really good gear. You don't want to Hell Power if you don't have gear, because the horrors can kill you. But if you've got all your gear, and you get your Melkorts, you Hell Power them, they're behind some chaff, you probably kit them with a Bloodthorn and then a Flesh Eater, and you have some people protecting them so they don't get interrupted. It's going to be nasty. They're going to kill entire armies. So... I hope you're excited about this. It's going to be a fun series. We're going to have we're not going to be crazy out of the gate, because we're basically going to be Scales Hinnom out of the gate, which can expand well. In tests, they get between 20 and 25 provinces if you expand well. We'll talk about how to do it. I don't know if we'll get it in this game, but because obviously it's far easier to expand year one versus a computer than against players who are going to try to cut you off in your expansion, or who can have ridiculous strategies where they expand really fast. So, yeah, that is our build, and thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.